We are at the forefront of many innovative and exciting things developing in the world of senior living. With Tim Mallad, CEO of Forefront Living, as our guide, this show will shine a light on how older adults can embrace these changes to live active, happy, fulfilling, and thriving lives. Through discussions with senior living and hospice professionals, architects and designers, and people of all ages, will help today's seniors envision the art of the possible and take steps toward achieving the future of their dreams. Welcome to At the Forefront.
Welcome to At the Forefront. I'm Tim Mallad, CEO of Forefront Living, and I have a really great discussion today. I will give a little bit of background before I introduce our guest. In the late teens, before 2020, our organization purchased a communications platform called Cubigo. And if you can think about seniors and technology and the need for communication and the need for interface, it was something new, it was something unique, it was something that we didn't fully understand or realize that we had purchased. And at the beginning of 2020, as the pandemic began, Forefront Living adopted a very strong platform of communication and a value of transparency. And we discovered we had this incredible tool called Cubigo that we could use to communicate not just with our residents, but with their family members and other constituents. So I'm very excited today to have the CEO and founder of Cubigo with us, Geert Houben, all the way from Belgium.
That's right.
Not Bruges, I'm sorry, Ghent.
Ghent.
We had the discussion about Bruges. So welcome, Geert. I think one of the very first things is, as I said in the beginning, you've got seniors and you've got technology.
Right.
The two don't always align so well. This incredible piece of technology comes to us. What was the inspiration for this? Can you give us a little bit of the history and the journey to creating Cubigo?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Tim. This is great. And happy to be here in Dallas, Texas. I started Cubigo 11 years ago, 2011, when I founded the company. And the reason was actually that I saw with my own grandmother a lot of challenges when she aged. She was staying at home. She didn't want to move to a retirement community. And I saw my parents struggling with the organization of the care. And I was running another startup in technology at that time. I was able to sell that company. And I thought by myself, like, I should do something in this senior industry because there is so much need for communication, for transparency, for making things even a bit more efficient through technology, that I started with the company in 2011.
So a bit of trivia, as you heard at the beginning, I mispronounced the name of the product. It is actually Cubigo.
That's how we call it, yeah.
Yeah, and before the podcast, we were trying to determine how that name came about, and I was firmly in the belief that it meant see you before I go, but that is not true. Can you tell us at least a little bit about how the name derived?
Absolutely. When you look at the product, it consists out of like different cubes, like different tiles that we use to make the information and the services that we offer on the platform very easy to digest for an older adult, and to make it very clear what they mean. So these cubes, it's the first part of the name. It's Cubigo cubes. The other part, ego, comes from amigo, which means friend. And so your personal cubes that you can use to make your life easier when you are aging. So that is where Cubigo comes from.
Or what we found, user-friendly.
Absolutely.
So your grandmother, we were talking about your grandmother. What sort of things was she facing, and what was your goal in creating this to help somebody like your grandmother?
Right. So what we saw back in the days is that she needed a lot of services to age in place, like food, transportation, maintenance, activities, social connectivity, and that was all very fragmented. So we decided to build a software platform to integrate all these different services into one simple user-friendly way, so that she, but also her children, could easily organize all that for her. When we came to the US in 2017, we saw that same need in communities, senior living communities, having the same fragmentation of all these services that needed to be integrated in a seamless way into a platform. And that is where Cubigo comes from, and that is how I made a link with my own grandmother situation back in the days.
So if you have a generation of individuals who, and I would look at my own mother at the time, who, maybe starting her iPhone was a 3-day process instead of a 15-minute adventure, shall we say. How did you make this platform, the amigo part, the friendly part, how did you make that happen?
Yeah, that's a good question, because as you mentioned in the introduction, like technology and seniors, that's not always going well together, although that is changing rapidly. I think COVID helped there to adopt technology and to make them see the benefits of all of that. The thing with a lot of products in senior living is that they are made only for seniors, and by doing that, it's also a bit stigmatizing, because you cannot. Nobody wants to be old, so you don't want to use products that are only made for older people, because you don't want to be old. And so what we believe in is it has not to be only simple and user-friendly, it has also to be a bit sexy. And that combination of simple and sexy, that is what I believe in is the key here. And that is also what companies like Apple made them successful, because it's not only simple, it's also sexy. And that is why they adopted.
Well, we have a new generation entering the communities. We're working on a new project, a very youthful group of individuals. Many of them are baby boomers.
Right.
That first wave of baby boomers. How do you think the product will appeal to them?
Oh, totally different than the silent generation that is in the communities right now, because they touched already technology when they were at home. They got like an iPad for Christmas from their grandchildren. They had their first smartphone experience. So it will be obvious for them when they move into a community that they have a tool they can interact with everything around them in the communities. So it will be a no-brainer. And I see it exponentially growing, the adoption of the platform. And COVID, of course, again, helped there. The use of Cubigo tripled during the lockdown.
So let's talk about that. And I as you were talking about, the silent generation, in my mind, I was thinking, we have 100-year-olds that use this every day and interact with it and are very comfortable with it. But COVID for my organization changed the way we communicate. And what you created was a tremendous vehicle for us to get real-time interaction with the people we serve. And you said that the use tripled. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we added a couple of features to the platform during the pandemic, and one of them was the in-suite TV channel. So that was a way to not only bring the content to people using a smart device, but just their television. And so they could just consume the content, like the activities for the day, the menus, news and information, just on their regular screen they are used to use. And so that really made it accessible for everybody. And if you then start adding like live streaming of video to these kind of channels, you can really create new ways of interaction. Just to give you one example, there was a community in Canada. They had a chef preparing the food with a camera on him. So he was doing that cooking TV, streamed in the rooms of all the residents. And when that session was over, they knocked on the doors and delivered the food. So they were not only seeing how it was made, they could also try it right after it. That is the new kind of experience that you can deliver through technology, and was a great example during the lockdown.
Well, we'll make that proprietary for Forefront Living in the United States. So we'll be the first to utilize that element of it. But really cool. As far as you and I spoke, and you were talking about the elements of it, what percentage do you think of Cubigo is currently being harnessed by the people that use it? Are we using it to its potential?
I think Forefront is a great example of the adoption. So we have like over 250 residents in your communities that are using the platform on a regular basis. That is pretty high. It varies a bit, client by client, community by community. We have communities where they offer the technology like the iPad as part of the apartment. so as part of the move-in experience. With these kind of communities, adoption goes up to over 90% because it's an iPad, it's at the wall, it's easy to consume that, you don't have to turn it on, it's just there. So that goes up very quickly. In other communities, it's typically around 50, 60%. So you guys are pretty high to like 70, 80%.
How many organizations, I guess, in the United States and around the world are using Cubigo?
Yeah, so we are rolled out in 600 communities. That is the US and that is Europe. And the cool thing is that you see so many use cases in both parts of the world that through one single platform, you can bring these over to the other part. So we see great things happening in Europe that we can deliver in the North American market and vice versa. And that gives us that like special edge of being a global company over other companies that maybe only focusing on other geographies.
Two-part question, because it always seems the really cool things happen in Europe first and we get them second. So is there anything new and unique happening in Europe? That's the first part, and I'll ask you the second part.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would not say that every new cool stuff happens in Europe first. I see a lot of things where America is first. One of the things that is definitely different in Europe is the healthcare system in general. We have a lot of government paid healthcare. We pay a lot of taxes, so it's a bit of a different system with the private pay you have in the US. We see that people live at home in their own environment, in their own houses, just even longer than it is here, because we don't have these big retirement communities that you have here. So it's more like you stay at home as long as possible, and then you go to like a skilled nursing or a memory care facility or community, and so we skip more that retirement living phase.
How would this help me stay at home longer, or even if you're in a retirement community, how would this help me stay in the level of care that I'm in longer?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what you see in Europe is that they start to use the communities as a hub in a larger environment or a neighborhood where they can deliver services to people at home from the hub. Because you have underused staff at certain times, you have a kitchen, you have a team of maintenance or technicians. You can use all these people and resources to deliver services at home so you can stay longer there. And that is a model that I think will happen in the US too. It's called we call beyond the walls.
Right.
So break out of the walls. And that is something that we will see the upcoming years.
And when we call it something very similar, so we're in alignment there. And I think the second part of that earlier question is, have people used Cubigo differently, and if so, is there something that you didn't anticipated as a use that has occurred that surprised you?
Well, yes. When we were actually very focused on the operations, right? So when a resident is a resident, so it was very much focused on when they live in the community. What we saw is that a lot of our clients started to use this tool as a way to engage the prospects or the people that are thinking about moving in maybe in a few years, but still just live at home or are part of the wait list. And so they could use the tool to make their life not only easier, but also start to bring a feel of the life in the community and engage them already, match them with activities, bring them in for a lunch and so forth. And so that made us decide to build also a part of the product that was what we call the customer lifecycle management module.
Okay.
That is very useful in managing these prospects, if you will, by offering that same content to these people and create that smooth customer journey from living at home to a community.
So Forefront Living, especially PVN, has had a lot of requests from children of residents or family members that have asked for access to Cubigo.
Yep.
Is that something you're seeing more of? And if it is, what is the opportunity associated with that?
Yeah, we see that. And that have been part of the proposition from day one, right? It's not only the senior, the family plays a very important part if you age. There was also a correlation with the acuity of care. People in independent living, the family is more like up to date with everything, but they are not really looking at the engagement levels or the details, how the resident is doing, because the resident don't want that. If you go to AL, you see that family interaction going up massively because the acuity of care goes up. And so there's a lot of opportunity here in creating transparency and peace of mind to family members. For a lot of family members, and that's a big problem in Europe too, a senior living community is a black box. You don't know what is happening. And when you communicate with family members, it's mostly about bad news, like you have to pay the bill, something happened with mom. This platform gives you the opportunity to communicate good news. Like, this is what we all do, the activities, the festivities, things that are nice to communicate about. So it's about good news, and that's a big difference in communication.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And for Forefront Living, having the ability for them to receive communication. So during COVID, of course, you're communicating about COVID, but then as a family member, you are able to click on a box and see what the activities are. You're able to see the menu, although we're not seeing maybe the chef cook the menu, but you see the menus, you see the life that's going on. How do you plan on evolving the platform? And is there a difference in how you'll evolve it in Europe versus here?
There will be probably some different accents. I think there are two main, let's say, roads that we take in the improvement. First of all, there is a clear road towards more smart and intelligent use of technology. So now we are focused very much on the digital part, how to move paper to digital, but the next 5 years will be how to move from digital to smart. Use the data to maybe start predicting things, to give even better insights in the well-being of the residents through collection of data. So that's one road. The other road for us is the business development, the business model innovation. That is really like, how can we create new revenue streams for the communities, or how can we use Cubigo as a tool to let people live in their own environments longer, and so break outside the walls, like we discussed before. So these are two different tracks.
So how are you getting feedback? Are you able to interface? We've talked, so I know that you're interested in what the organizations that adopt Cubigo are like, but have you been able to interface with the residents, the end user, and if so, what are you hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a core part of a product development is that you listen to your target audience. Mm-hmm. That's not only the communities, who they see in daily life what is going on, so they can give us massive feedback in what we should develop. We also communicate a lot with residents. We do that by creating these resident councils, where we take residents from different clients and communities. We bring them together in a virtual, which is possible since COVID, in a virtual way through Zoom or another medium, and we collect their findings. And it's not always good news. They also bring they have time to look in detail at the product.
We know we have some excellent grammar experts and individuals who know where punctuation goes in documents, but what's been the not so good news? What have they communicated to you?
Well, they have a strong voice and they do not hesitate to articulate their feedback. And so it goes from things are not articulated well, we don't understand, this button is too small, like these smaller things, but also just bigger ideas like, hey, why cannot I get my wellness appointments through the platform? I want to book the swimming pool. I want to see when the barber shop has free or available slots. Like, they come up with so many great ideas.
And they can do that now, can't they?
Yeah,
I believe our residents can make reservations and see the open slots. So that came out of direct feedback.
Right, and it's something we just released. So it's just available, and it's all based on that feedback that we gathered.
Yeah, well, what's nice for us is we get the same type of feedback, not necessarily about the application, but about what we communicate and how they want it differently, or how they want it better or more detailed or more frequent. So as we move forward and we've got this great tool, how do we harness all of these elements? Because I firmly believe we're not using it to its maximum. How do we have the ability to grow the platform in our communities? Is there a different level of support coming, or education maybe?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tim. So, and that's also why we came up with that modular approach of cubes, because you cannot just expect from anybody to adopt a platform like this, like all in one, all in once from day one. That's not possible. So we really recommend our clients to start small with the core and build on top of that by adding new cubes. We have last year during COVID released an e-learning academy so that team members but also residents can just go online and learn about all these new things and how to adopt them. So that will be a tool that we will use also to train your staff on all the new and greatest stuff that is coming up.
So what would your recommendation be to other communities or organizations that have Cubigo to get their percentage of usage up to that 90%?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a question we got a lot, like how do you train the residents and how do you keep them engaged on using the platform? What we typically do and recommend is we do train the trainer programs for your team, but we never go in to train the residents because it should be a vital and critical part of your own workflows in the community. So what they typically do is do like a Cubigo cafe or an iPad class, like part of the activity calendar, where you maybe serve some nice drinks and food, but also teach them what technology is and what it can do, at the same time what Cubigo is and what it can do. And that's a very natural way where you will see a lot of residents coming to, adopting and learning the platform, and these ambassador residents, they will tell others. So it spreads like a fire.
I would agree with you. I think that's why it's been so successful for us, because we're giving them what they're asking for. We've not boxed them in. They're able to create that box. They're able to develop that platform. Was your grandmother able to use Cubigo when it was developed?
No, unfortunately not. So she passed away before it all came into the market. But of course, she's always in my mind. Every time we design something, we come up with something, I have to think about her. And that's great inspiration.
Absolutely.
And that's also what it makes for me like a mission-driven experience and company, and not just a financially driven adventure.
And let's focus just in the last few minutes about the mission piece. I mean, obviously you have a heart for seniors, you have a heart for customer service. Where did that come from, and how important is that as you build your organization?
Right. Well, it's crucial. I mean, you cannot run a company these days without that strong customer experience or customer heart. Well, it came definitely from the experiences I had with my parents and grandparents. And I remember when my grandmother passed away, my parents told me, like, when we age and when we get older, we want to have a totally different experience in how that all happened. And hopefully technology can help us in that, because we don't want you as our child to come to our home every day to take care of us. We want to be empowered with tools so we can take care of ourselves. And that was also for me like a big eye-opening experience. Like, yes, we can do something with technology. It's not just to make the human connection go away. At the contrary, you give empowerment to people, and for your team and staff is just more efficient because you have more time for that human connection. And so, yeah, that was an inspiration, and that is also something we take very close every day in our mission.
Part of the vision of Forefront Living is to be an innovative partner that enables people we serve to thrive, and I think extending that is to find and have partnerships with other organizations to help us have our residents and the people we serve thrive. So I think you've definitely found a great alignment with us, and I think with our industry with this platform. Any other things you'd like to tell us about Cubigo before we end?
Well, I just want to thank you for this opportunity, rolling this out in Texas with all your great residents, all the feedback that we got. We're grateful for that. So I really want to thank you also for being here. It's a great way to communicate with the world all the great things that PV and Forefront and Cubigo are doing. So thanks for that.
And thank you for solving the mystery of what Cubigo, not Cubigo, means. So wish you safe travels back to Belgium. I look forward to seeing you when you're here again. And thank you for joining us at the Forefront.